In the quiet hills of Eho village, there lived a young woman named Amora. She was known across the village for her beauty, but also for the sadness in her eyes. Her skin was smooth like shea butter, her hair long and thick like the river grasses, and her smile, when she did smile, was enough to stop men in their tracks. But Amora didn't smile often. Not anymore. She grew up in a small mud brick house with her mother, Ngozi, a strong woman who raised her alone. Amora never knew her father well. He left the village when she was just 5, chasing riches and excitement in the city of Port Harcourt. Years passed, and one day he returned, thin, pale, and sick. Her mother took him in, cared for him, fed him, and stayed by his side even as he wasted away. One night, Amora sat by her mother's bedside and asked, "Mama, why did Papa leave us?" Ngozi looked at her daughter with tired eyes. "Because some men don't know when enough is enough. Your father loved too many women. And one of them gave him death." Those words stayed with Amora forever. Not long after her father died, Ngozi also began to fall ill. Amora, only 16 at the time, did everything she could. She begged the village healer, sold vegetables in the market to buy medicine, and even walked miles to a clinic in the next town. But nothing worked. Before her final breath, Ngozi whispered, "Promise me, Amora. Don't trust a man who cannot be true." Amora cried for days. When she buried her mother beside her father, something inside her changed. She was no longer just a village girl with dreams. She became someone different, someone who understood that love, when betrayed, could kill. At 18, Amora packed her few belongings and left Eho. People watched her as she walked down the red road out of the village. Some said she was running from sorrow. Others said she was searching for hope. But no one knew what truly lived in her heart. She arrived in Enugu, a town full of noise, flashing lights, and people too busy to care. She found a small room behind a tailor's shop and got a job selling fruits by the roadside. She worked hard, kept to herself, and said little. But even in the crowd, men noticed her. "Fine girl, what's your name?" they would ask. "Do you live alone? Can I walk you home?" Amora would smile politely, say nothing, and keep walking. But she watched them closely, especially the ones who wore wedding rings or talked about their girlfriends. They reminded her of her father. One day, a tall man with a neat beard and shiny shoes stopped by her fruit stand. He smiled too wide, laughed too loud, and bought too many mangoes. "You're too beautiful to be standing here alone," he said. Amora tilted her head and smiled softly. "And you're too married to be talking to me like that." He laughed nervously, then said, "Marriage is just paper. What matters is connection." Amora stared at him for a long moment. Then, she handed him a ripe mango. "Maybe next time, you'll think before speaking." As he walked away, still smiling, Amora whispered to herself, "Men like you never learn, but maybe I'll teach you." That was the beginning of something dark. Something slow and quiet. Amora was not a monster. She didn't hate all men. But she had made a promise. And the fire of that promise was only just beginning to burn. Weeks passed in Enugu, and Amora's fruit stand became popular. People came not just for her sweet pineapples and juicy mangoes, but also to catch a glimpse of the quiet beauty behind the table. But Amora was not searching for friendship. She watched everyone, especially the men who came with charm on their lips and lies in their eyes. One afternoon, as the sun was high and the heat heavy, a dark SUV pulled up across the road. A man stepped out, tall and broad, wearing a crisp white shirt and dark sunglasses. He looked like someone important. People greeted him with respect. Some even bowed slightly. He crossed the street and stopped at Amora's stand. "You sell the best fruits in town," he said, removing his glasses to reveal soft eyes and a clean-shaven face. Amora smiled lightly. "It's the soil," she replied. "It gives what you feed it." He laughed. Wise and beautiful. I like that. I'm Chuka. Amora nodded. Amora. He pointed to some oranges. I'll take 5. And your number 2. She handed him the fruits in a brown paper bag but said nothing about the number. Chuka grinned. Okay. Maybe next time. He paid and walked back to his car. But as he opened the door, Amora called out softly, You forgot something. He turned. She held up a small paper, neatly folded. Inside was a number. That night, Chuka called. They talked for only 10 minutes, but that was enough. He told her he was a businessman. Owned 3 shops. Married, yes, but unhappy. She doesn't understand me, he said. Amora said little, just listened, and let him speak. That night, she looked at the ceiling of her small room and whispered to herself, another one who doesn't value what he has. 3 days later, Chuka invited her to a hotel. A quiet place in the back streets. She agreed. The hotel room smelled of perfume and fresh sheets. Chuka had already ordered food and wine. He was full of compliments. You're different, he said. There's something special about you. Amora smiled, but her heart was quiet. She let him touch her. Kiss her. Lie to her. And when it was done, he laid beside her, proud and satisfied. You know, I feel like I've known you forever. Amora got dressed slowly. Maybe in another life, she replied softly. He kissed her forehead and said, I'll call you tomorrow. But she already knew he wouldn't. The next morning, Chuka woke up sweating. His head spun. His throat was dry. He thought it was just bad wine. But the days that followed were worse. Weakness. Fever. Sores. He went to the hospital. The doctor frowned after checking the results. You need to sit down. What is it? Chuka asked, his voice shaky. You tested positive for HIV. Chuka's world fell apart in seconds. He tried to call Amora. Her number didn't work. He drove to her fruit stand, but it was empty. A young boy nearby said, she moved yesterday. Said she was going to work in another market. Chuka sat in his car for a long time, shaking. She was so calm, he whispered to himself. So quiet. So normal. He remembered her last words, maybe in another life. Now he understood. That life had ended. Meanwhile, Amora sat in her new spot, under a tree in a different part of town. Selling fruit. Smiling softly. Watching. Another man passed by and smiled at her. She smiled back, but only a little. Inside, she whispered, they never stop coming. Amora's fruit stand now sat under a tall tree at the edge of a busy Enugu market. Her spot wasn't fancy, but it was enough. People passed by all day, some in a hurry, some with nothing to do. But Amora noticed the ones who looked too long. The ones who smiled too much. The ones who wore rings but acted single. She didn't have to go looking. They always came to her. The first was Pastor Eloka. He came wearing a long white robe and held a Bible in one hand. His smile was holy, but his eyes weren't. My dear sister, he said, God bless your hands. You are doing a good thing here. Amora smiled. Thank you, sir. He bought bananas. The next day, he came back. Bought apples. The third day, he didn't buy anything. He just stood and watched her. You remind me of the women in the Bible, he said. Strong and beautiful. Amora looked up at him. Which one? Delilah. He laughed loudly. Oh. No, oh. I mean Esther. The two of them talked for a while. He told her his church was growing fast, but his wife was always too busy with the children. He said he needed a friend to talk to. Amora nodded slowly. I listen well. 3 days later, Pastor Eloka was in her small room, removing his robe with shaking hands. The second was Mr. Madhu, a lecturer from the local university. He saw her one morning while buying roasted corn. His car was old but clean. His clothes neat. His words too smooth. You should be in school, he said. I studied life, Amara replied. He liked her boldness. Said he wanted to mentor her. Amara knew his type. The ones who gave girls grades in exchange for secret visits at night. He told her he was married, but it's just a title. He said things between him and his wife were complicated. Amara agreed to visit his home only when his wife was out. She stayed for 2 hours. And left him with more than sweet memories. The third was Okochukwu, a taxi driver with a strong voice and loud music in his car. He picked her up one evening during rain. She was carrying too many fruits, and he offered her a free ride. You're not like the other girls, he said. You're different. Amara didn't answer. She just looked out the window. He kept talking. Said his fiancée was always complaining, and that he needed peace in his life. He drove her home that night and waited outside, expecting an invitation. Amara opened the gate, turned back, and whispered, "Come in, if you're sure." He didn't even hesitate. 3 men. 3 different stories. But all with one thing in common, they were already tied to someone else. And they thought Amara was just another beautiful face with no questions. Each one of them began to feel strange after a few weeks. Headaches. Fatigue. Sores. Then the fear. Then the hospital. Each of them was told the same thing, HIV positive. Each one remembered her face. Her calm eyes. Her silence. They tried to find her. But by then, Amora had already moved again. She sat under another tree now. A different market. Same fruits. Same quiet smile. Another man passed. His eyes lingered. Amora picked up a fresh orange, peeled it slowly, and whispered to herself. Only those who lie in the dark fear the light. In a quiet part of Enugu, a woman named Adi sat at the edge of her bed, staring at her husband. Her heart was heavy, her eyes tired. Mr. Madhu, her husband, had changed. He no longer smiled like before. He came home late. He avoided her touch. And worst of all, he had started coughing and losing weight. At first, she thought it was stress. The university work, the pressure. But when she found a half-used bottle of medicine in his drawer, medicine with the label antiretroviral, her hands began to shake. She waited until he slept. Then she picked up his phone and searched quietly. No password. She opened his messages. One name appeared often, Amora, Fruit Lady. The messages were short. Hope you're sleeping well. Don't worry, no one will know. It was nice last time. Her heart cracked. The next day, Adis followed him. She wore a simple dress and wrapped her head with a scarf. She stayed far behind as he walked to a car park and got into a taxi. She paid another driver to follow quietly. The taxi stopped near a market. Mr. Madhu got out and walked to a fruit stand. A woman stood there, beautiful, calm, her skin glowing in the morning light. He greeted her. She didn't smile much. Just handed him a pineapple. Then he walked away. Adi stayed in the car, watching. That was her. That was Amora. Back home, Adi sat in silence. That night, she confronted her husband. "You're sick," she said. He froze. "What are you talking about?" "You have HIV," she said plainly. "And I know about the fruit seller." His face dropped. "Adis, please. Don't lie," she said. "I saw her. I saw everything. Tears rolled down her face. You could have killed me. I didn't know, he whispered. She didn't look dangerous. Adi's voice turned cold. So danger must have horns. Adis told her sister, who told a friend, who told another woman, Mrs. Iloka, the pastor's wife. She had noticed her husband's health had changed too. Always tired, always hiding his phone. She hadn't asked questions, until now. The pieces began to fit. The pastor. The lecturer. The taxi man. Different lives, same sickness. Same woman. They met in secret. 3 wives. 3 broken hearts. She targets men, Adi said. Especially those who cheat. But why? Mrs. Iloka asked. The 3rd woman, Ngozi, Okachukwu's fiancée, wiped her tears. Because pain makes people do strange things. Amora didn't know they were meeting. She didn't know the whispers had begun. But she felt something in the air, a shift. More eyes watching. Fewer men smiling. She was careful now. Moved markets more often. Changed her number again. But in the background, the truth was catching up with her. One evening, as Amora packed up her fruits, she noticed a woman standing nearby. Wearing a scarf. Watching. It was Adis. Their eyes met. Adis didn't speak. She didn't shout. She just looked, long and deep. Then, she turned and walked away. Amora stood frozen, her chest tight. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Guilt. Back home, Amora lit a candle in her room. She stared at the flame and whispered, "Am I becoming what I hated?" But the fire didn't answer. Only the silence did. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Dr. Ikena stepped off the bus in Enugu. He was a tall man in his 40s, with tired eyes and a careful smile. He had once worked in Port Harcourt, but the noise of the city had worn him out. He came to Enugu for peace, or so he hoped. He didn't expect to find a ghost from the past. At the local clinic where he got a part-time job, he looked through the patient list and paused when he saw the name Amora IB. Something about it stirred his memory. Could it be? Later that day, he opened an old folder. Inside was a picture, faded, but clear enough. A younger Amora stood beside a hospital bed, holding her mother's hand. Her eyes full of tears. Her father had died just days before. Her mother was slipping away. Dr. Ikena had been the one to treat them. He remembered now. She was just a girl, he whispered. Now she's here. 2 weeks passed before he saw her. Amora came to the clinic early in the morning, wearing a yellow wrapper and a scarf over her hair. She looked calm, even peaceful. She waited quietly in line. When her name was called, she stepped into his office. She didn't recognize him at first. But he knew her immediately. Amora, he said gently. She looked up. Yes. It's been a long time. Port Harcourt, your parents. Her eyes widened. For a moment, the strong woman disappeared. She was that scared girl again. I remember you, she said softly. You were kind. Dear. Ikena smiled sadly. And you've changed. She didn't speak. He handed her the medicine. You're still taking your treatment. She nodded. Yes. I never miss it. He paused. I've heard stories, Amora. About some men. About a woman who punishes them. Her face froze. And you think it's me? I don't need to think, he said. I see it in your eyes. She looked down. Her voice became quiet. They come to me. They lie. They cheat. They think their wives don't matter. Just like my father did. Just like the man who gave him the sickness. So you punish them, he asked. Amora looked up. Her eyes filled with a storm. I don't chase them. They come. They always come. I don't lie. I don't promise anything. They take. And I let them. Dr. Ikena leaned back in his chair. But you know what you carry. She nodded. Yes. And you don't want them? They don't ask, she replied. They think I'm a game. They never imagine someone like me could be dangerous. Just like they never imagine their actions have consequences. The room was silent. Finally, Dr. Ikena said, You're not wrong about their sins. But this path you've chosen, it's not healing you. It's destroying you. Her hands trembled slightly. I don't feel pain anymore, she said. Only power. But power without peace is poison, he replied. And I see it in your eyes, Amora. You're not at peace. She stood up, clutching the bag of medicine. Thank you, doctor, she whispered. For the reminder. And she walked out, her shoulders straight but her heart shaking. That night, Amora sat by her window, watching the moon rise. She remembered her mother's words. Her father's face. The crying, the funeral, the loneliness. And for the first time in years, she asked herself, what am I really becoming? But there was no answer, only the sound of the wind blowing through the dark. In the peaceful hills of Eho village, the sun rose over the red earth as it always did, warming the huts and calling roosters to sing. But that morning, the elders of the village gathered under the ancient ube tree, their faces tight with concern. A message had come from Enugu, carried by a cousin, whispered by a traveler, repeated by a church deacon. The message was short but heavy. Amora Ibe has returned, but she carries death. Elder Okri, the oldest among them, shook his head. That girl was raised with values. Her mother was a woman of faith. This cannot be true. But Elder Motsi, who had lived in Lagos for many years, spoke firmly. Even good soil can grow bitter fruit if the seed is poisoned. The elders decided to summon Amora. She had returned to Eho quietly 2 days ago, taking a room near her uncle's house. Nobody had seen her much. She didn't visit the market. She didn't attend church. She only walked alone at dusk and returned before nightfall. That evening, a boy knocked on her door. The elders want to see you, he said. Amora nodded. She had been expecting it. She dressed in a simple white gown, the same one her mother had worn to the village women's meeting long ago. She combed her hair, wrapped her head, and walked barefoot to the ube tree. The villagers had gathered. Old women with headscarves. Young boys with curious eyes. Mothers holding babies. Fathers leaning on canes. When Amora arrived, silence fell. She stood before the elders, her back straight, her face calm. Elder Okori spoke first. Amora, daughter of Ngozi, we have heard troubling stories. About men falling sick. About secrets and pain. About you. Amora looked him in the eye. I know what they say. Is it true? Another elder asked. Did you give sickness to those men? She paused, then said softly, I didn't give it to them. They came and took it themselves. Mamas filled the crowd. What do you mean? An old woman shouted. You're blaming them. I'm not blaming. I'm explaining, Amora said. Every man who came to me came with lies. Married. Engaged. Promising love while hiding wives at home. They saw my face and thought I was a prize. They didn't ask. They didn't care. They only wanted. Elder Motsi stood. And you allowed it. I did, she replied. Not to seduce. Not to trap. But to show them what it feels like to take and leave without thinking. A woman in the crowd sobbed quietly. Another elder asked, And how many have you been with? Amora's eyes lowered. Enough. Silence again. Then Elder Okari sighed. You have turned pain into revenge, Amora. But revenge is a river that never ends. Amora's voice broke slightly. I was a child when I lost both parents. My father died of this sickness. My mother too. I watched her fade every day. I buried them with my bare hands. No one asked me how I felt. No one cared. And when I grew older, I watched the same kind of men, still walking free. Still smiling. Still breaking hearts. But you cannot punish all for the sins of one, Elder Motsi said. I know, Amara whispered. But it's the only way I knew how to survive. A long silence followed. Then, Elder Okri said, we will not cast you out. But we cannot protect you either. Amara nodded. I didn't come for protection. I came for peace. She bowed her head. Then turned. And walked away from the ube tree. Her white gown flowed behind her like smoke from a dying fire. And the village watched her go, not with anger, but with sorrow. After the meeting under the ube tree, Amara returned to her small room at the edge of the village. The sun had set, and the stars now blinked softly above the hills. She sat by the window, staring into the night. Her face was calm, but her heart was heavy. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Not judged. Not feared. Just seen, as a girl who had loved and lost too much. In the days that followed, no one spoke to her directly. The children who once waved shyly avoided her now. Mothers whispered behind cooking fires. Young men crossed to the other side of the road when she passed. But Amora didn't complain. She understood. One morning, she left a letter on the doorstep of the village elders. She packed her things, wrapped her clothes in a white cloth, and left before the cock crowed. No one saw her go. No one knew where she went. The elders gathered to read her letter. To the people of Eho village. I am sorry, not just for the sickness I carry, but for the anger that carried me. I was once a girl who believed in goodness. A daughter who watched her mother die because of a man who couldn't say no. That pain shaped me. I let it turn into fire. I thought I was burning only the guilty, but now I see that fire does not choose what it burns. To every wife who cried because of me, I am sorry. To every child who lost a father, I am sorry. I cannot take back what has been done, but I pray you protect your daughters, and teach your sons, to love with truth, not lies. Maybe then, fewer hearts will bleed like mine did. Amora IB. The elders said nothing for a long time. Then Elder Okari folded the letter and said, let her name be a lesson. Months passed. The story of Amora IB spread from Eho to Enugu, from Enugu to Onitsha, from Onitsha to the far corners of the region. Men began whispering her name in bars and on buses. Some feared her. Others denied ever meeting her. But the wise ones knew she was real. And her story was a warning. One of the women she left behind, Adiz, found her own healing. After the shock of her husband's betrayal and his HIV diagnosis, she left him. She moved back to her mother's house and started a small support group for women, the daughters of Ngozi. There, they met weekly under a mango tree. They talked. They cried. They healed. No topic was off limits: betrayal, shame, disease, silence. And always, at the end of every meeting, Adiz would say, protect yourself. If he lies, don't stay. If he cheats, don't chase. You are enough. In a town far away, a secondary school teacher named Chinyo was moved by Amora's story. She turned it into a classroom discussion. Girls, what can we learn from her pain? She asked. One girl raised her hand. That being beautiful is not enough. You have to be wise. Another said that even the strongest woman can break if her heart is wounded too many times. Then one boy stood and said that men should stop thinking they can take and take without facing the fire. Chinyo smiled. Exactly. One day, in a hospital far from Eho, Dr. Ikena received a small letter with no return address. Inside was a folded note and a flower, dry but carefully pressed. Thank you, Doctor, for reminding me that even fire must cool. I am still walking. Still breathing. Still searching. Maybe one day, I'll find peace. Asterisk, A. He closed the note and placed it gently in his drawer. She was still out there. Somewhere. Back in Eho, a group of teenage girls gathered under the ube tree. One of them, bold and curious, had found Amora's story online. They passed around a phone, reading from the screen. She was so beautiful, one girl said. And so hurt, another added. But she didn't run from her truth. The oldest girl stood up and looked at the others. We will not be like the ones who stay silent. We will protect each other. The others nodded. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a seed. Years later, a new name began to appear in books and newspapers, the legend of the Fruit Lady. Writers turned her story into plays. Teachers used it in lectures. A filmmaker even visited Eho village, hoping to find her, but no one knew where she went. Some said she moved to another country. Others believed she became a nun. A few whispered that she had passed on quietly, her mission complete. But one thing was sure, Amora Ibe's name had not died. Not with shame. But with power. With truth. With warning. Final words of the tale. In the land where the sun kisses the earth and secrets travel with the wind, there once lived a woman whose heart was broken too deeply to be mended with time. She did not ask for pain. She did not seek revenge, until revenge came knocking with a smile and a ring. Her hands once carried fruit. Her lips once carried laughter. But after betrayal touched her soul, she carried something else. Something silent. Something deadly. And through her story, the people learned that lies may taste sweet in the mouth, but truth is what keeps the soul alive.